tell us about yourself.
Walter Pasquarelli. I run an AI policy advisory firm. I'm a member of the OECD.ai working group. I'm an affiliate at the Bennett Institute in Cambridge.
So you've been part of the World Government Summit this year, the Government Services Forum 2024, and you talked about AI policy, regulations, and a bunch of interesting things that are happening within the domain of AI. Tell us some of the thoughts that were shared there by different people.
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, there's a few things that are happening that I think are quite interesting. First of all, we hear the topic of artificial intelligence mentioned pretty much all over. Like it's like kind of like the main term that we see floating around this year. But there's of course also, among all the hype and among all the excitement, there's also sort of like an additional nuance that I find here, which is all about understanding what are actually the use cases, what are the specific applications that we can actually use artificial intelligence for, so that we don't just develop it for the sake of it, but we actually try and use it to benefit people in specific areas. We've heard numerous times the topic of healthcare. We've heard, for example, the topic of better services for citizens. So the key thing is really the practical applications and strategies for AI.
So given the state of AI right now in the world, we've had some really good conversations here on main stage, of course here as well, in the forum as well. Where do you think we are with regulations in terms of AI? And do we need regulations, or we're okay as the way we are?
Yeah, I mean, that's I think the million-dollar question. When it comes to regulation, do we need regulation? The question that I always ask is about for whom? And that means, what are we trying to achieve actually with regulation? And I think there's a few approaches that we've seen across the world. We see, for example, the European Union with their AI Act, who are taking the side, as they say at least, with like sort of fostering consumer trust at all costs. That's sort of like the most important things. The United States, on the other hand, with their executive order from the White House, says, well, we want to find a balance between what's going on between the private sector and the consumers through more guidelines, so a looser approach. And then we see here in the region actually a lot of different approaches taking place. Here in Dubai, something that's quite interesting is a regulatory lab, which works almost like with sandboxes, where people can experiment and try different things before they go onto market. And I think they've been quite successful here in sort of trying out these approaches, carving out space for policy experimentation, which is one of the reasons why they've become also the leaders in the region.
Yeah. Do you think it's possible to have consensus across the world on what AI should do and how it should be developed?
Yeah. I mean, we could start on a very high level. I think there's a lot of high-level principles that we see in terms of AI development. There were notably the Asilomar principles that were developed by all the technology leaders. I believe it was in 2015. And they started out with the principle, AI should benefit humanity. Right, we can all agree to that, right?
Yeah.
I think when we become more specific, that's I think when things become a little bit more difficult. So should we develop AI for benefiting the economy? Should we do it while putting people at the front? And then the question is, of course, the how. We can all agree on the why, we can all agree on the what, but how we do that, that's ultimately where I think differences will arise, where different kinds of stream of thoughts come to the front, which ultimately will have significant policy implications for what we do.
Excellent. Any final thoughts on where to go from here? You've done the forum this year. What is in store for governments who are going to embark on some of these journeys now?
We're just getting started. So as a matter of fact, like when we talk about artificial intelligence, this is just the beginning. And while there is a lot of hype, while there is a lot of excitement, while some of that is not always well warranted, this is just the beginning of it. My recommendations to governments, based on everything I've been hearing from the conversation so far, is really set your foundations right. And the foundations in the majority of cases are, number one, the data. Bring your house in order, get those data sets straightened out. And secondly, develop the right kinds of infrastructure. Think of connectivity across your whole country, not only your capital cities, across the whole country. And number three is make sure that you attract the right kinds of talent from abroad, as well as you cultivate them domestically, so that you can actually develop these tools and create your own homegrown AI superstars.
Incredible. Thank you so much for joining us, Walter. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.